They need your guns. Sell for top dollar. DonleyAuctions.com.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag.
It's true, Squirrel.
Red, white, and blue.
I almost pulled the doctor down. Must go home. Must go home. It was a combination of an anger burst and Tourette's on a plane today. Fracking tarmac and listening to Dan Proft on the morning show play a clip of these commie, socialist, useless, good-for-nothing punks that have achieved nothing. Like Mandamni. What did he do? He won an election among morons, among the true face of greed in the country. The something for nothing. And we'll get to Paint Chips Pat Quinn and the felon LaShawn Ford next. But when he played this cunt, I didn't have a face yet. I didn't really understand until I looked at the video that these, once again, are good-for-nothing punk entitled kids that have never done anything, earned anything, and have never or will ever amount to anything. These are American communists.
We're excited to have each and every one of you to join us for this important discussion about what socialism is, the history of socialism, and what a socialist revolution could look like in the United States. Because the main thing that we talk to with all members, with the Action Network, and with our communities is how do we actually achieve it?
A foundational step in the socialist reconstruction of society would be the creation of a new constitution. The new socialist government will take possession of all the existing capitalist banks and create...
Now, that's the part where I had a stranger ask me, you all right? Because it was about to get ugly. And you realize what this is. It's not just treason or the beginning of an insurrection. What this is a quest for underachievers who have never done anything to seize other people's money. And you see, this country is the youngest and the richest because it rejected all of this. And the areas that implement this ideology are the areas that are collapsing, the areas that hire dumber, more corrupt politicians. You know, areas like ours.
Another push by some state lawmakers and former Governor Pat Quinn to raise taxes on millionaires as a solution for...
Now, Pat Quinn's a millionaire. Yes, he is. He should be a millionaire on residuals for using his ugly face with his eyes, his beady little eyes close together like a cyclops. He's about a millimeter away from a cyclops, this ugly bastard. They should use his face on a lead-based paint disclosure so everybody understands what happens when your kid eats lead-based paint. You look like Pat Quinn. And here's the other scumbag, LaShawn Ford, who was looking at, 17 counts of bank fraud? You see, LaShawn Ford always pretended to be a man. I actually came in brief contact with him in a cigar store where him and his big moron meathead Luca Brazzi, the two of them were the least accomplished people in the cigar store, and I'm including people who didn't work. And when you realize these are the millionaires, all of these government suck-ons, Pat Quinn gets two pensions, totaling about $17,000 a month, which for you to retire on $17,000 a month and all your insurance paid for and all the perks and benefits that go with Pat Quinn's pensions, you would need about $6 million, maybe 4.8, depending on how it was held. We'll have to ask Tom Fortino that. And Pat Quinn wants to stop people from making money in the private economy. See, he also gets to keep his coffer. All the kickbacks. Isn't that right, Paint Chips? All of it. You know, Squirrel, he's probably just mad. He had the title of the dumbest-looking governor in America right up until Walz won Minnesota.
Property tax relief and better funding for public schools. So this morning at City Hall, Quinn State Representative LaShawn Ford filed paperwork to try to get a non-binding referendum on the November or February 27 ballot in Chicago, where they would ask Chicago voters if they would support a 3% income tax surcharge on millionaires. So Quinn...
You know, it's just mind-boggling in America that we even have a progressive tax, which is the number 2 plank of the Communist Manifesto. and it's meant to be a government extortion tool. What is the tax for being a degenerate whore on the street? Crackhead, little crack problem. What is the tax on the scum that destroy our neighborhoods? What's the tax on the illiterate moron that society pays $33,000 a year to Chicago public schools to pretend he goes to school? Is there a tax on these idiots? This is the true face of greed. Between the suck-on direct welfare roach and the municipal worker pension roach, that is the recipe for the Soviet Union.
Ford say this tax on millionaires will generate $4.5 billion a year across the state if this were to happen. So that money would get then split.
Where does that equation come from? Hey, stupid. You just repeat things like these kids here. Just keep repeating it. And where does that calculation come through? I thought it was going to be the dope was going to solve the problem. We're just going to sell a little bit of dope. I thought it was the one-armed bandit gaming, ghetto gaming. That was going to solve the problem. No? So now what's going to solve the problem? Taxing more people who already left? What are the odds somebody makes $1 million a year and didn't leave? What are the odds? And if they didn't leave, what are the odds if this passes they do leave? I mean, after all, the only real millionaires that still stay are the ones that have to get their phony jobs and their phony pensions.
50-50 where it would go to property tax relief for Illinois property tax owners, and the other half would support public education.
What we need to do is have a millionaire amendment that says to the millionaires, you've been getting all the property tax breaks and tax breaks in general, and everyday people are getting higher and higher property.
Well, how do your friends get tax breaks? Did they have to drop off an envelope, you crooked, beady-eyed bastard? Is that how it works? Or did they hire one of your scumbags? One of the law firms at Mike Madigan, Short in the Pants and Depressed LLC? Or big fat ass with cellulite in it, Ed Burke? That's how you normally get it done. That's how you've been steering it. Right up until they don't need to have a Democrat mafia don and a crooked Democrat judge agree that the price is not as much as the state thought or the county thought. Because of your policies, they're worth nothing, stupid.
Tax bills. We've got to stop that, and this amendment, sponsored by Representative Ford, on the ballot for the people to vote on is the best way to do it.
Representative Ford, he's running for Congress, right? Now, maybe it's just being from my neighborhood, Squirrel. You know how a guy has a 17-count indictment? An indictment, which means a grand jury saw it 17 counts. And then all of a sudden, things go quiet. And he agrees to plead to one count, and they drop the other 16. The feds do that. You know how that happens in the neighborhood? You know what you smell like? You smell like bacala. You smell a rat. That becomes a confidential informant. And right after all of those cases, then you started to see all these other Democrats that were pals with him all of a sudden get other problems. LaShawn, you think you fool everybody? You only fool the moron Democrats. You don't fool the rest of us.
All right, you got to keep this in mind. This is a non-binding referendum. In other words, the city or the state can't enforce it. So in order to change the Illinois tax code, it requires a constitutional amendment.
Ooh, a constitutional amendment in Illinois. You mean like the one that says pensioners will be paid regardless of any collapse of the pension system, regardless if you scumbags put $1 in it or you give loans to Jaws, regardless of if Alexi Silky G. Janulius loses this to his brother at the Bank of Mellon in New York, regardless of the reality that you have a system built on nothing, no math, no return on investment. In fact, it is a law in Illinois that government workers are gods among all the citizens. They could tax you into poverty. So that's why I didn't get too aggravated at this punk kid. After all, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, every other Democrat enclave from California to the East Coast, you're already socialists.
One People's Development Bank. The Electoral College would be abolished. The House of Representatives could be replaced with the National People's Assembly that would not only be made up of delegates elected from local election districts, but would also include delegates from the many mass organizations of millions of workers, students, and more.
So you're going for like a Politburo thing, or are you just going to go for the Nazi? I mean, you are a Nazi. Or you think you're better off by calling yourself a commie, a Soviet. Which one is it? You know the good news, Squirrel? This country, the one she's preaching from, we have killed 1 million socialists, 1 million communists. That's what we're really good at.
And the Senate could be replaced by the Assembly of Oppressed Nations to correct the historic injustices imposed on the indigenous peoples and the nation and the Black nation.
You talking about the Comanche, enemy of all? Or you talking about the Hopi with the big giant head that was begging for the cowboy to kill the Comanche? What the hell does this broad know? Did you even pay your tuition yet?
This Assembly of Oppressed Nations will consist of delegates from oppressed nationalities and peoples. The reorganization of society, including the transition of society to green technology and renewable energy.
Yes. You see, because Trump stopped what he could with that giant scam fraud, trillions and trillions of dollars. And whenever they talk about taxing millionaires, what is the tax on politicians' spouses? Be they big, fat, with the fupa, like little Dick Durbin's wife? Or they be pretend assets to the oppressed people like Gavin Newsom's wife? What is the tax on the money stolen by spouses of politicians and politicians? What was the tax LaShawn Ford paid when he tried to use his campaign money to pay off his gambling debts?
Josh, great to see you. So what made you look into Newsom's wife in the first place, and what did you find?
Well, there are just always a lot of questions that seem to be swirling around the Newsoms and their finances, have been for years. And so I thought, this is a man who clearly is going to be running for president. This is worth looking at, what their finances are, what the shape of them are. And so when I had a look.
Oh, yeah. And Gavin Newsom, on his tax returns, it looks like he frauded all the information about the whore wife and the NGO money laundering schemes, let alone the John Paul Getty Trust Fund. It looks like on his tax returns, he did what all Democrats do, like Pritzker. He cheated and he lied.
I already have. You've had 20 years of my taxes, yes. Since 20. I know you love taxes. Donald Trump, when's he releasing here?
No, we don't like taxes. You love taxes, and you love them for the same reason Pat Quinn, LaShawn Ford, and every other Democrat cockroach attached to Cheat Taxes LLC, short in the pants mafia law firms that were operated by Ed Burke and that other moron Mike Madigan. That's what you like, because then you got the clout, you got the crooked judges. You're real hard to figure out, scumbags, which is why, kids, when you go to Washington, D.C., how do we bridge the divide? Put the criminals in prison and free the Americans. 312-642-5600.
Call Shaun now. 312-642-5600.
Foundations of Freedom.